Okay, so now we're going to be creating folders and files. So let me go ahead and clear my screen. Just type in clear. Okay, oh, and another thing too, let me just type in errors. One thing I wanted to point out again, as I mentioned earlier, you know, just like it's a Windows program, so you have menus on the top and then you have buttons on the top. And buttons are very similar to what you're familiar with. Well, there are some buttons that you may not, that are new for this program. In particular, I want to point out this clear button here. Notice how on the bottom, in this console area, there's, an error. So if I just do this clear button, it is like I just typed in clear. So that's one of the buttons. And you'll also see there's cut, copy, paste, there's redo and undo. And then I'll look at these two buttons in just a little bit. Okay, so writing a script. So now I want to go into the script pane, which is on the top. And if I just do, let me just do MKDIR and then AA. And that's all I want to do right now. Well, actually, down here, first let me go into, okay, I just did a very long directory. We're in the Windows System 32. So let's kind of get out of that. And I want to go into the users area. Okay, and then I'm going to go into my area or my profile and do a dir, but there's still a lot of stuff in there. So what I actually want to do is go into the documents and then create a folder to work in. So I'm going to do cd documents, dir, still a lot of stuff. So let me do mkdir test. Okay, so if I do a dir, I'm going to go into this test area. And then if I do a dir, notice that there's nothing there because I just created that folder. And this is what I actually recommend that you do, just so you don't have a lot of stuff like this when you do dir, when you're testing and working with this. Okay, so I just did one small command up on the top in this script area. Now you can run it, like this is another new button here. And actually, when you are doing programming languages, you will be using something like this, and it's actually called an IDE, a development environment, and you will have a button on top that has run. And notice how it pretty much just looks like the run button on your video or audio devices, like a DVD player. So if I just hit run, notice how it just ran what I have in here. It just created a directory called AA. So now if I do a dir, let me do an ls just because, okay, a dir, and it says, okay, I have a folder called AA. Let's go ahead and change this and do BB and then run it. So now I have a folder called BB. I do, oops. Oh, I just did dir up there. Okay, I go down here and do dir, and now I have two folders, one called AA and one called BB. Well, let's say I wanted to create 3 more folders here. Now, I really wouldn't want to just keep on changing this. Let's say I want to create 3 folders. So I just copied that, pasted it, and pasted it again. So now I want to create a folder called CC, DD, and EE. Notice how I double clicked this couple of letters so I can highlight it. Remember earlier or in a previous class, I showed you that if you double click something, you can highlight the word. If you triple click it, you typically highlight the whole line, but sometimes it doesn't work on different programs. But anyway, I was just double clicking the area to highlight it so that I can make a change. So now, if I run this, we're now going to create 3 more folders. So let's go ahead and run it and see how it goes. So it just ran and it created a CC, a DD, and an EE. If I do a DIR, now we have 5 different folders. So that's generally what your assignment, or that's part of what your assignment is going to be. You have to create a folder and then 4 folders inside of them, and then each one of those folders has its own folders. But all of that has to be created in one script. So not only do we need to make directories, but we need to put in this script, well, how do we get out of a directory? How do we get in the directory to create a folder within? Well, all of that needs to be in this script. So I'll cover that in just a second. So, well, actually, this pretty much does it. When you do set location and then something, you're actually changing the directory. Just like a CD would, you can also put set location. So let's say, oh, and another thing I want to point out too is that, okay, so I ran this and it created the CDs and E's, but if I were to run it again, notice how it gives me a bunch of errors because they're already created. And let me look through this here. Resource exists. And this is actually another good example of what you may see when you're writing programs. There's errors, and a lot of times it looks like just a bunch of gibberish, but if you just kind of look through it a bit, okay, it says that C users A card documents test CC already exists. So, and then sometimes it kind of like repeats itself. So you pretty much just have to look through, and eventually you'll get familiar with, you know, what errors look like. And so there's DD already exists, EE already exists. So one thing I want to point out is that yes, you can run, and there's also the option to run just a selection. So if you just had one thing you wanted to run, if you highlight it and then do the run selection button, it will only do that one. So that's actually, that'll be helpful as well. And let me show you that later, because I kind of want to keep up with this list here. Okay, so we made directories, and let me go ahead and cover this set location. So if you do set, and also remember IntelliSense, it will give you suggestions on what it thinks you want. So every time I type in a letter, it gets me closer to what I might want. And then I just press tab, or I could have just done the down arrow and did set location. Okay, so if I do set location, and again on the bottom, I'm going to type in a dir just to show which folders we have, and we have 2 A's. So let's go ahead and do set location AA. Now, remember I was mentioning running just a selection. We know if I run this whole thing, that these 3 commands are going to give me errors like this in red. So I only want to run this one for now. So if I do this button that says run selection, it's only going to do this line. So if I, and notice how also we're in the documents under test, set location changes the folder, just like the CD. So if I do run selection, now we're in the AA folder. Now that's going to help you on the assignment, because at some point you want to go into folders and make directories inside of those folders. So actually, let me go ahead and continue with this run selection. And I'm going to run these 3 make directories inside of this AA folder. So if I do run selection, because I only want these 3, now I've created C's, D's, and E's in this AA folder. So if I do a dir, you see that those are there. If I do a cd ... to go back and do a dir, in test, there's all 5 of those folders. So does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, Professor. But are you going to show us how to like write the whole script so we like just do it in one action, or we're just taking steps for the moment?
Yeah, I'm taking steps, just taking steps for now, but this is pretty much it, to tell you the truth. If I were to do file, save as, and it's going to be a PS1, and I'll just name it test and save, and let's just put it in the, so I went in the documents folder. Okay, so there is a script. This is an actual script that could be run.
Of course, no, but to be more specific, what I'm also saying is we're setting location in AA, and then are we also gonna like we're gonna do the subfolders, but what could we add like more make directory subfolders after set location?
Yes, absolutely. So if I copy these 2 lines and then paste, now I've created those folders, then I go into this folder and create these 2. So for example, let's say in the script that you need for the assignment, let's say there's fall 2020, then we're going to set the location to that folder. And so to go into that folder, and in fall 2020, you do the class 1300, and then you do the class 1301, run that script, and I can do that now in test. It'll ask me to save, so I click OK. And now it's created a folder called fall 2020 with 2 classes in it.
And one more small question. Of course, when it comes to spaces and other certain characters, we have to do parentheses though.
Spaces, oh yeah, so
Or
let's say
quotation
you
marks. I
wanted,
mean, sorry, quotation marks.
yes, it would be quotes.
Okay,
So
sorry.
if you wanted a space in between here, just be sure that you put quotes around it.
Okay, cool.
Good question. And for, you don't, it doesn't have to be exactly, so this is the assignment, and yes, it has a space in here. It doesn't have to be exact. So, but I guess it really doesn't hurt to put this whole thing, because you could just copy and paste. But yeah, just be sure that you put quotes around the entire thing. Good question. Good question. Good. So sounds good, right? It's
Yeah,
not that terrible at all.
sounds good.
Okay, and let's see. Okay, so let me get out of this fall. And one thing I also want to mention is that, well, how do you get out of the fall? Or how do you get out of a folder? Because at some point, okay, you're going to make these folders, but then you need to go in that folder to make a couple of folders and get out. How do you do that? Well, you could also do the cd ... command, just like we typically would here to get out. You could just do that in your script to get out. So I'm just going to highlight that and run that, just the selection, and see how it ran the cd ... command. So now I can do, let's say let's say I want to make 1300, set the location to 1300, and then do the written and do the assignments folders, and then CD to get out. So let me go ahead and run this. Now, I'm not going to have any errors because in the test, well, let me just make sure. If I do a dir, notice that there's no 1300 folder. So I'm not going to have an error. It's going to make a directory. It's going to go in the directory, make those two folders, and then get out. So if I run that, of course I have to save, and it did it. It created a folder called 1300. It went into the folder. It created those folders inside of it, and then it got back out. Not too bad, right? So here's 13.
Well, another question, Professor. So obviously we're just learning this and change directory, getting out of the folder, and then to go into another folder, set location. But if we set location without changing directory, could it automatically do that too?
Set location. Well,
Like
you have,
if we had multiple folders and I set location to like 1400, would it go then to that folder, or would it be confused?
oh, no. Yeah, you totally could do that. You
Okay.
could totally do that. So if I copy this, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're asking. So let's say,
I guess also too though. Okay, hold on. Let's pretend I have 1400 in another. It's another subfolder in another folder. I would have to get out of the current directory anyways. I mean, I couldn't just I couldn't like draw the path or and then set location and draw the path or.
yeah, I would definitely do it this way instead.
Okay. Okay. I was kind of curious if you can just jump to it. Okay.
Good question. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's what you can, oh, so actually let me go ahead and, okay, so one of the other things that I wanted to do, and I'm just going to jump to it real quick, is this line here is to delete a folder name and everything inside of it. Because this you might need to do if you're kind of fooling around with it, or you're just working with it for now and you just want to delete something. You can just do delete, and let's say I wanted to delete fall 2020. Then I do force. I want to force, and recurse means that you just want to continuously do something. So I want to continuously force any deletions associated with fall 2020. So if I press enter, basically fall 2020 and anything else inside of it will be deleted. Now, actually, I should have showed you without those extra commands. If I do delete 1300, it gives me this message. It says, you're not specifying, are you sure you want to remove all the children or the child folders in there? So yes. And now if I do a dir, it's all completely deleted. So the purpose of doing this force and recurse is so that you're not going to get that message. So that's pretty important there. At least right now that you're fooling around with it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Another quick question. And this is just slightly off topic. Children, is that a vague term for different types of files?
No, well, vague. Well, I would say it's just the
Like,
smaller.
does it apply to folders, like newly created folders only, or?
No, because I would say basically it's just like a smaller version or something inside of something else. Because they do use that term in different places,
Mhm.
but in this situation, children would be like subfolders.
Okay, interesting. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I deleted everything that was in there. And so now I have a script that's going to make 1300. We're going to go into 1300, make a couple of folders, get out, and actually, for the assignment, I want to make another directory called 1301, get into that directory, and then make a couple of folders in there and get out again. So let's go ahead and run that entire script. Yes, I want to save it, and it is done. So we have 1300, we got out, we made, or 1300, we made folders, we got out, we made another folder, made those folders inside of it, and we got out. And actually, remember the tree command. And this, I know this is weird, but it is still showing that, I don't know why this is coming up recently, but it is still showing that we do have a 1300 folder. There's assignment, and then WR. Then there's 1301, assignment, WR. And then there's also a folder called AA with CCDD and EE. So that's pretty much everything that's in there. Not just what I've just created, but the things that I created previously. So yeah, that's just a way to confirm that everything that you've done has been created. And that was the tree command. Okay, so let me see if I've covered everything. Okay, I kind of went through this real quick, but I just want to make sure that, okay, so once you do all your commands, be sure that you save the file. So you just do File, Save As, like you normally do. Save it wherever you want. Make sure it says PowerShell. It should default there. And I put specifically on the assignment that I wanted to be called lab10.ps1. So I just copied lab10. And it's going to be under Documents. I paste. By default, it's going to say PS1, but just to be safe, you can put PS1. And then I'm saving it in Documents. And that is what you're going to upload. So for this assignment, you will not be doing screenshots because you'll be creating a script and uploading it to me. Sound good? Okay, so let's see. So we've saved. I showed you the run button on top. It's the green button. You can run just parts of it, whatever you highlight. But I also want you, I kind of want to show you errors, okay? So if I did just make directory 1300 and I run it, okay, save it, okay. Okay, then it gives me an error. Now, the reason why it gives me an error, just like I showed you earlier, that it already exists. So that's one of the main reasons why I showed you that you can highlight and run just part of it, because although this is a good command, if it already exists, then it's going to give you an error, and then you might be like, well, what's wrong with it? It's good. So just kind of keep that in mind. One thing, I know I'm skipping around, but one thing that I recommend is that you type in these two commands. And what this does is it pretty much resets your code. So every time you run it, you're testing it. Okay, is it good or is it not? If it's not good, when you run it again, this clears it out. It clears out the folders you created, so that way it'll clear it out and then run the new code. So at the very beginning of your line, or at the very beginning of your code, you want to type, and I would actually recommend that you should just, I recommend that you should just do this, these 2 lines, you know, right when you start. So that way you won't run into too many errors. And of course, I'm doing C users admin01, but know that it could be different if you were using the system, the virtual system that I typically use in the NetLab area, then it would be this location. But right now I'm actually using C users ACAR documents. So just be sure that you use the actual location that you are using at the time. Does that make sense? Okay, so set location. And I'm sorry, did you? I'm kind of thinking this was the question that you had earlier, to set location to a specific area, David.
Right, but I also was curious if you're in a, like if you're setting location from a, okay, depending, okay, when you set location to a different area when you're already in a location and maybe not a location where the immediate folder is available, meaning like you're in a subfolder and you want to set location to a new folder, how do you like jump to the new folder, what a new subfolder in a different folder?
Well, well, this is the absolute address. So
Right. So you could set location absolute address, and that's like how you would jump to it.
yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly. Good,
Okay.
good, good, good.
Cool.
Okay.
But of course it would have to be the absolute address. There's that's like the way to do it because there's no like shortcut besides the CD dot.
Well, to tell you the truth, there is,
Oh,
but we haven't really covered it.
okay.
Um, Let me do, I don't know if you remember, sometimes when I would do a dir,
Uh-huh.
it would, and I think that's more in the command prompt, it would show like 1 dot or 2 dots.
Yeah, yeah, and then it would show like the full subfolders, like the folder and the subfolder's name or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, you could do that. If you just do a dot and then a slash, it's a relative address. It's not absolute. It doesn't say the entire thing.
Right.
Use that dot to just kind of go out one, you know what I mean, or in one.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
So
that's
so if I
worth
do one
doing.
dot, I only go back one folder, or do I go like or I'm in like in one what?
You would actually go into a folder that's, it's where you are, but within a folder of where you are.
Oh, so the main folder, like the main folder that has the folders and then the subfolders.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So that is really cool. Yeah. And this is not the only place too. There's still other places where you can use that dot slash, you know, in HTML when you're doing links to different web pages, you can do that as well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Nice. Good question. Okay. So let me do remove item. And again, the reason why I'm doing this is because I highly recommend, oh, and this is just what we're doing here too. Remove item dot slash AA. So dot slash, that is the relative location from where you are, AA. And the only reason why I have AA is because that's the name of the folder I was creating this page with. This page right here, because I did make directory AA. So if you made a directory called fall 2020, and you wanted to remove fall 2020, you would put fall 2020 there. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do 1300 because I have it down here. And that's the directory that I'm creating. So I want to delete it And remember again, the whole reason for using these two lines is because when you're creating the script and you're practicing and you might be getting errors, this is a way to just kind of clear everything out and test your script again to see if it does what you want it to do. Okay, so then I'll do force and then recurse, so that way it'll just keep on doing it until it deletes whatever I want. And then it will do this make directory and then test my host script again. So it won't give me an error now because I just told it to get rid of this 1300. But actually, there's a 1301 here. So it will give me an error because this already exists once it tries to do this. So let me actually just do, I'm going to cut this out just so we can see this do its work. I run it, do OK, and again, it's going to remove the 1300 and then recreate it. Okay, so it's running it. Now it gave me an error. Why did it give me an error? This 1300 did not exist. Remove item 13. Oh, that is because I'm not in documents. I was in test. So that is a good example of verifying your location. So let me go ahead and go into test. And there's the 1300. So instead, I should have done documents test, because that's where my 1300 is. So now let's try it again. Running the script, save. No errors this time. This is where it ran the script. It actually went to this location where the test is, removed the 1300 folder, then created it again, went into that folder, and then wrote the two folders inside of it, and then got out. How does that sound? So now if I add this folder here, it's going to give me an error because I don't have where it should delete that folder. So let me go ahead and run it, save, and there's the issue because 1301, and actually it's given me a lot of issues because 1301 exists and then WR and assignment exists as well. And I misspelled that. What's this? So how can we not have that error? Well, I want to use this line again, but to delete the 1301 folder as well. Okay, so in the test folder, I'm going to delete these two so I can test this script to see if it works good. Run. Okay. No errors. And we go back to where, this is where we ran the script. Right there. No errors. So it went into the test folder, deleted 1300 and 1301, which I created earlier. And then it created the folder. It created the two subfolders. It got out. It created 1301, created those two, and then it got out again. Yay. So any questions about that? I think you're going to do great. Okay, so let's go ahead and do, I just want to do a dir. And the trade command, let's try that with just doing 1300. Or let's just do test, just because. Okay, no subfolders exist. Okay, that's weird. Do 1300. And in the 1300 folder, it has the ASMT and the WR. Okay, so I already added folders and CD. Okay, I already showed multiple locations. Okay. Add 2 lines at the beginning. Okay. I showed you these 2 lines, so I highly recommend putting these 2 lines before starting anything. But you know what? It might still give you an error because you won't even have. Let me go ahead and type something. Yeah, see, it gives you an error because the folder hadn't been created yet, this folder. So after you test it out, then add these 2 items. Okay, so yeah, so that's pretty much it for that. I'll go ahead, well, actually, these are really quick, to tell you the truth.